and welcome to today's seminar. And we've got a great lineup for you today. It's kindly brought to you by Amazon Business. So thank you very much for Amazon Business for supporting us on this webinar. And this is one of a series of three that we've done with Amazon, and the final one in that series. But don't worry if you've missed any of them. They're all available as recordings, and we'll put links in the chat and we'll send them all out to you. This session also is being recorded, so if you want to listen again, or if you want to share it with your peers and your colleagues, then by all means that will be available afterwards for you to watch again and share. So like I say, this is one of three that have been brought to you by Amazon Business, and there have been some cracking ones, so make sure that you catch up on any other ones that you've missed so far. Great to see so many of you join today. Make sure you continue that chat and get to know some of the other people who have joined us on this webinar today. And we really want to make sure that this session is as interactive as possible. So I'll be keeping an eye on the Q&A box and on the chat. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask any of our speakers today, then please submit them nice and early so we get through as many as possible. Misha, thanks for joining us. So I'm just joined by Misha from Amazon Business, who is Head of Strategic Accounts, Amazon Business UK and Ireland. Welcome, Misha. How are you?
Thank you, Emma, and great to be here today. And thanks everyone for joining and taking time out of your busy day today. My name's Misha. I lead the strategic accounts team for Amazon Business UK and Ireland. What that essentially means is myself and my team, we work with some of the most complex, largest accounts and help them get the most value out of Amazon Business as a procurement solution. And I'll be joined today by one of our customers, Chris Thompson, who heads the Group Procurement and Excellence and Assurance function at Rolls-Royce. And he'll be sharing more about his particular journey in procurement digitization that Rolls-Royce has gone through.
Excellent. Great to have a case study so we can see, how your services are being used and getting some really great results. So we're here talking about rethinking the role of enterprise procurement. And I wanted to have a quick chat with you first, Misha, before we go on to the case study. So how do you think the pandemic and new home workings, etc., have influenced procurement processes specifically in regards to digitalization and automation?
Thank you. Very, very good question. So we conduct a lot of customer research to hear firsthand the challenges that customers are having, so we can also develop new features and solutions to make their lives easier. And in a recent set of interviews that Forrester Research conducted for us with procurement professionals in Europe, we found that 87% of our survey respondents were prioritizing automating parts of their procurement process through digital solutions. And this is quite a significant trend because traditionally, up until recently, we had seen the most commonly cited challenge among business procurement leaders has been controlling excessive rogue and tail spend.
Yeah.
But today's procurement decision makers do not necessarily evaluate purchasing solutions solely on the ability to control tail and maverick spend. Our research actually showed that they were more interested in the system's capabilities to drive more efficiencies, and so they can actually demonstrate procurement's impact to the bottom line. And this tells us that sourcing and procurement are becoming more and more strategic functions within organizations. What's interesting is that many of the European decision makers that we surveyed named agility and automation as critical or high priorities over the next 12 months. And as many of you know, many parts of the procurement process make sense to automate. In other words, they are highly repeatable tasks, including purchasing, invoice payment, supplier management, and tracking. And many commercial sector organizations take advantage of procurement digitization today, but in order to gain more operational efficiencies, companies need to do even more and use more advanced digitization so they can be even more agile with their decision making going forward. What we've seen with regard to COVID-19 in particular is quite an interesting impact on this trend. And the next slide shows some data on how procurement professionals are responding to the challenges that the pandemic has presented over the last 18 months. And as you may have guessed, COVID-19 has in fact accelerated the digitization journey. As more and more customers prioritize efficiency gains and cost savings, And we actually found that 85% of the companies surveyed pushed more of their procurement online due to the pandemic. And what is probably more interesting to note as well is that this shift appears to be a permanent trend, as 96% of the survey respondents anticipated that they will continue increasing online procurement even after the pandemic ends. Some of the particular nuances that we noticed that are worth highlighting are that customers valued the flexibility of being able to source items for direct delivery to employees, regardless of where they were located.
Yeah.
So, particularly as hybrid working and remote working became and is continuing to become more embedded in organizations, even as we now come out of the pandemic into recovery mode, that flexibility is really valuable across a number of organizations, whether that's delivery to people's homes, to engineers working in the field, to be able to order direct rather than maintain expensive warehousing and logistics, is certainly a priority for many of the customers that we work with. And the other trend was really around visibility and control, which, as I highlighted earlier, was always an important factor, but it's become even more important to avoid that waste and leakage across both direct and indirect procurement categories as companies become even more cost conscious as a result of the pandemic.
No, absolutely, and we've certainly seen that in the conversations that we've been having with CPOs. In that, lots of budgets were cut at the beginning of the pandemic as people started to be a bit more cost conscious. Yet, digital projects were the ones where the investment was still going through. So that really echoes a lot of what we're hearing too. But what are companies doing today to digitalize their procurement processes? Again, a bit more detail on that for us.
Thanks, Emma. Happy to share more about what we're seeing with our customer base. And the question we ask is really what does digital procurement actually mean for a lot of customers, and what are they, as you said, what are they doing today in terms of low-hanging fruit? And I would say this centers on three areas that I've outlined here. And that really stem across the procurement journey, and across e-procurement systems, tools, and marketplaces that customers are using. So let's start with the first stage in a typical purchasing journey, which is browsing for what you need to purchase. And e-commerce has been a part of our lives as consumers for some time, and moving supplier catalogues online was a very intuitive step for many businesses. Even though B2B has sort of been behind B2C in this trend, we're seeing it sort of rapidly catch up there. At Amazon, we noticed some of this spend was happening anyway via consumer sites, so moving it across to AB facilitated greater visibility and control for procurement teams, because a lot of that spend wasn't managed centrally, and they weren't able to see all of that data. But it's not just the products you can buy on Amazon and similar marketplaces. There are more and more specialist suppliers of goods and services are moving catalogs online too. And e-procurement systems are increasingly offering what we call integrated search, which is a really valuable feature where you can see search results across multiple different platforms and catalogs and solutions, all within one place in the e-procurement system, and then select the most appropriate product for your needs. Secondly, the next stage in the procurement journey is the actual purchase itself. So digital also means visible and quantifiable. So every transaction can be tracked to see who is buying what, where and when, and of course what can be measured can be more easily managed. So that's where we're seeing digital POs going via CXML. Everything is trackable. There's approval workflows to make sure that rogue spend is reduced, but it's all done in a very intuitive way so that it doesn't encourage the end user to go off grid, that they are using the compliance systems because they're easy and intuitive to use. And then I'd say the third key area is really sort of the end of the procurement journey, which is the payables process. And while making browsing and purchasing and delivery much easier for procurement professionals, it's also important to ensure that finance teams are happy as well, and that they are the teams in charge of paying the bills and accounting for these purchases are also saving time and effort in the process. And this is where new initiatives like electronic invoicing are coming in, and increasingly more and more for government to bring in electronic invoicing mandates, and encouraging not only government portals but also consumer and business to business solutions to be widely adopted. And some of those are native within the procurement system or via open networks. And at Amazon Business, we're working with a number of different partners, but the procurement systems plus open networks to enable e-invoicing for our customers, so that finance also shares in those efficiency gains.
Absolutely. And, these are the areas where there's lots of pinch points, lots of noise, lots of unnecessary transaction and going over things multiple times when things don't go smoothly. So I totally get that in terms of ease of use for customers and the increased visibility. But how can organizations go beyond that to leverage digital purchasing technologies and drive transformation in their functions?
Thanks. A really, really interesting question, and something we're thinking about a lot at Amazon Business as well. And what we're witnessing is which is really interesting, is how customers are going beyond digitization of tail and indirect spend by e-commerce to really optimizing their procurement function using data and analytical tools. And here there's probably, again, three areas that I'd like to highlight. So the first being analytics, using data to make smarter purchasing decisions. So aggregating spend data across multiple sources is becoming increasingly important to identify areas of savings. E-procurement tools and systems are facilitating this. Amazon Business is one kind of piece of the puzzle, but you also have some of the e-procurement partners like Coupa, Reba, iValua, a lot of these platforms that have these tools, where we're also seeing some customers taking the next step and applying AI and ML tools to use this data to forecast demand for particular items, to plan purchasing and inventory management more effectively. And much the same way at Amazon, we have our own intelligent buying systems. Customers are applying similar technologies.
Yeah.
And we have some very interesting and inspiring conversations at the moment with some of our customers about how we can combine intelligent analytics with those digital purchasing channels. And AWS are also doing some really interesting work in this space as well. I'd say once you have sort of the data and the forecasts, the next area where we're seeing a lot of innovation is how to apply those insights to optimize your supply chain. So we're seeing customers adjusting their purchasing timing to optimize inventory levels, intelligently balancing just-in-time procurement and sourcing with security of supply, eliminating waste and unnecessary items, and rationalizing the SKUs that they purchase as well. So reducing number of suppliers, reducing complexity of some of the catalogues to extract savings that way as well. And again, this is something that certainly the pandemic has accelerated. And I'd say the third trend is around, with large enterprise in particular, we're seeing different business areas learn from each other and build those cross-organizational efficiencies. And what might start out in the IT or office spend and those areas of indirect procurement can then be translated to MRO, PPE, and even direct categories, where data and insights can inform better decisions and repeatable processes can be automated. And a trend we're watching now is how new tools like RPA, robotic process automation, can link different systems and processes together across different areas of the organization and optimize procurement even further.
Excellent. Great stuff. And the pandemic really has also been a bit of a wake-up call for us all to focus on the environment and incorporate more sustainability in at the core of our strategies. How can we embed sustainability into procurement?
That's a really important question, I think. And again, with that idea that the pandemic has definitely been a wake-up call, and is a dry run in many ways for what's still left to come with everything we need to do to manage the impacts of climate change and make sure we're all part of the solution. And without quoting too many studies today, one number I did want to mention was that we surveyed 250 business buyers around their priorities in procurement, and 39% of those buyers say that improving sustainability was their top procurement priority this year. And as you said, this is something the pandemic has accelerated. And what does this actually mean in practice? So we're going to see more and more suppliers quantifying the carbon footprint of their product, ensuring internationally recognized ESG criteria are met, and agreeing more standard metrics and frameworks for reporting, and being held accountable by our customers, our employees, and our investors. And at Amazon Business, we see digital procurement as part of the solution. So helping customers to quantify impact, to inform procurement decisions, learning from each other as we really refine that solution. This includes, but it's not limited to, more sustainable product selection. So products that have been certified as climate pledge friendly, for example, and reducing the carbon footprint associated with deliveries and logistics, and reducing packaging waste that gets generated for each of these orders. It's still very much day one in our journey, and we're looking forward to finding even more areas of improvement, but it's a space where we'll see a lot more development, and we look forward to being part of the solution here.
Excellent. Sounds great stuff. Thanks, Misha. That's really interesting. I'm going to hand over to you, Misha, to introduce Chris to go over your case study, and then I'll come back and facilitate some Q&A. So I know we've already had one question in, but make sure you get your questions in to Misha and Chris as soon as you can, and then I'll be back at the end to go through all those questions. Over to you.
Right, thank you very much, Emma. Yeah, I'd like to introduce Chris Thompson. He heads the Procurement Excellence and Assurance function at Rolls-Royce, and Chris will share some more details about Rolls-Royce's digital procurement journey. So over to you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Misha, and thanks, Emma. It's really good to be part of this session today. So really excited to be here. So I'm Chris Thompson, the Head of Group Procurement Excellence at Rolls-Royce, where I'm responsible for procurement systems, process, people, risk, and as Misha's just been talking about, sustainability across the Rolls-Royce Group. I've spent most of my career in the indirect procurement space across both strategic and operational roles. Prior to my current role, I led the category management element of our indirect procurement excellence transformation programme, which is what I'm largely going to be talking about today. Before I dive into that, just as a brief introduction to Rolls-Royce, for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar, get it out there straight away, we do not make luxury motor cars. We're a technology company specialising in power solutions, primarily across our three main business units of civil aerospace, defence and power systems. The Rolls-Royce name you see on cars is licensed to a German company and not actually anything to do with the current Rolls-Royce group. We're also currently exploring exciting new clean power solutions as well in the small nuclear reactor market and electrical flight as well. You may have seen in the news last week, we are just waiting confirmation that we've set a world record for the world's fastest electric powered flight. So very exciting times there. And sustainability is a core part of our business strategy. We strongly believe in the transforming power of our technology. And the corporate vision of Rolls-Royce is to pioneer the power that matters for the needs of tomorrow as well as today. Because of the industries we operate in, putting big polluting engines in the sky or powering diesel trains today, it's a big challenge for us, sustainability. But at the same time, I don't think any company is probably in a better opportunity to help society to transition to a low carbon economy. And we're determined to use our position to play a role in creating that resilient net zero carbon future. Just a couple of little things around those three core business areas. So as I mentioned, civil aerospace is a major manufacturer of aero engines for large commercial aircraft, regional jets and business aviation markets. There are 35 different types of commercial aircraft powered by Rolls-Royce, with around about 12,000 engines in total in service around the world. And about 50% of our workforce works in the civil aerospace market. Power Systems is a provider of high-speed reciprocating engines, where we have around about 20,000 engines sold a year. About 20% of our employee base works in the power systems sector. And Defence is a market leader in aero engines for military transport and patrol aircraft. We also have significant scale in the naval and nuclear submarine industries as well. Our indirect procurement organisation sits within a central shared service organisation called Group Business Services, and it serves all of the above business units that I've just mentioned. With the Ipex programme, we underwent a significant transformation exercise with a huge focus on digitalisation. In terms of the issues we were looking to address through the programme, we went directly to our internal customers within the business, and amongst the feedback we heard, they told us, we don't have enough spend visibility, not enough insights into what we're spending our money on. The teams are too tied up in operational tasks, little time for supplier and contract management. We've got clunky, complex systems. Turnaround times for purchase orders are too long. We need better experience between procurement and the end users within the business. They wanted to discuss strategies and cost saving rather than resource constraints and operational constraints due to the complex process we had. And really more insights into where procurement could deliver value. If we could just flick on a slide, please. Thank you very much. So what were we looking to set out to achieve? Basically, we were looking to transform the way that Rolls-Royce spends around about 2 billion of our internal spend, which is about 25% of our total external spend, whilst providing a platform to reduce that spend year on year. It was established to address some of those concerns that I've just mentioned, but really a need for increased control, increased accountability, and visibility of our indirect spend. And as a result of the feedback from our stakeholders that buying goods and services was one of the biggest frustrations for Rolls-Royce employees, we had a really complex, non-standardized system landscape, and it needed to be simplified to make the purchasing process simpler for all involved. So behind those drivers, we had 3 key elements to the programme. One was a overhaul of our global category management model, moving from separate businesses buying their own things to a strategic global procurement organisation, whilst upskilling and refocusing our professionals within that area of the business. The implementation of a new digital procure-to-pay solution, in our case was Cooper, but as Misha's mentioned, there are plenty of other similar solutions, but Cooper was the tool that we selected, consolidating a really complex legacy suite of systems to one interface for all our major countries and sectors that we operated in. And with the above 2, that would also give us the opportunity for the third pillar of the programme, which was an overhaul of our procurement operations to standardise our global procurement operations within a shared service structure. In doing those 3 things, we had our 3 core objectives. One was to buy effectively through easy, simple purchasing experiences. Secondly, to operate at pace with standard processes and a best-in-class tool. And the third was to save smart by making strategic, structured buying decisions. We gathered representatives from across our major geographies that we operated in, across the functions of IT, procurement, finance and tax, to create a really standardised way of working. And when we were taking decisions during the programme, we consistently asked, will this make things easier for the end user, and will this deliver value to the Rolls-Royce? Putting customer centricity and value delivery at the heart of the technology design that we were doing, and truly challenging the existing ways of working. It was really important for us that we didn't just take our current ways of working and cram it into a nice fancy tool. The tool was going to be for us our mechanism to fundamentally changing the way that we work. So as I've said, customer experience was at the heart of Ipex. The vision of the programme was proudly transforming the Rolls-Royce procurement experience, and that meant the experience of our procurement professionals and the experience of our customers and stakeholders within the business as well. Whilst I'm keen to stress that other major online retailers are available, we kept hearing from our customer base, why is it so easy for me to order online in my personal life at home and so difficult to order the same things at work? I want the Amazon experience in my work life as well as at home. And so that's what we looked to deliver. The partnership with Amazon is a really important part of that. But as Misha's mentioned, it's just one part of the overall picture, and one of hundreds of key suppliers across the Rolls-Royce group. And our challenge was to deliver the same painless experience, regardless of what we were ordering or who we were ordering from, be that toilet rolls or a brand new aero engine test bed. Clearly, that's easier to achieve in certain commodities than others. But having established that mindset and having that as an ultimate goal was really critical to the success of the program. That included designing suitable, what we called content for our new tool. So that the metaphor we kept coming back to was that Cooper, our new tool, was our new supermarket, replacing all these corner shops that we'd previously had. But ultimately, there were still empty shelves in that supermarket. And so it's really procurement's job to make sure that we stacked the shelves of the supermarket. And there was when people went into that tool, there were things ready to buy. To do that, we leveraged the AI that was now available to gain insights into our spend, reimagine supplier scorecards and feedback mechanisms to switch from a traditional KPI contract-based performance approach to a much more end-user satisfaction focus. If we could switch on again, please. So to give a sense of scale of the Ipex program, in the run-up to go live, we delivered over 6,000 e-learning modules to bring not just procurement, but the wider Rolls-Royce organisation on this change journey with us. We had 116 separate communications go out to various parties within Rolls-Royce. And we had 2 websites developed, an internal and external one, which were visited over 20,000 times. We had a change network of over 135 change agents to make sure the change was felt in all areas of the organisation. And in terms of the stacking the shelves, which I've mentioned, we had over 700 bespoke web forms or order forms created alongside a whole host of new catalogues to cover over 85% of our spend, so that when a user went into Cooper and searched for what they were looking for the vast majority of cases, there was already some sort of structured item, whether it be a catalogue item or a form to fill in to be actioned by someone else, ready to go and ready to be checked out without having to do any further work. In the first year of being live, we saw 10,000 users place over 100,000 orders, totaling nearly £3 billion worth of spend across around 3,500 suppliers. Underpinned by those statistics, we saw the programme as an overwhelming success in meeting the core objectives of delivering a renewed procurement function, a renewed P2P tool, and processes that would enable our users to buy effectively, operate pace, and save smart. In terms of that buying effectively and operating at pace, we had one customer from our main site in the US saying, raising a requisition is now so fast, there's so much less paperwork, I couldn't believe it. I got confirmation of the order straight away and the goods arrived next day. That statement and the statement you see on the screen there as well, which is another really nice one we had from one of our end users, is backed up by the statistics that we have within system to show that we've improved from what was pre the Ipex program, a 10-day SLA turn time for requisitions and a 10-day SLA that we often failed to hit. And that SLA excluded any business and financial approvals. That was purely the procurement approval only, to a turn time on average of less than 40 hours. And that turn time and approval time of less than 40 hours includes all financial and business approvals as well. A large enabler of that improvement had been a 10-fold increase in catalogue spend, where end users could instantly check out their requirements straight to a purchase order, confident that procurement had done the work to pre-negotiate the best deal in advance. Catalogue purchases now represent just under 50% of transactions for Rolls-Royce in indirect. And our procurement professionals, when things did come through to them to action, benefited from a 65% reduction in mandatory process rules, alongside an overall reduction of 27% of all our process steps. Misha mentioned earlier, the need that this is not just a procurement program in digitisation. We need to bring our colleagues in other functions along as well. And we did that in this program as well. So prior to Ipex, we had single-digit percentages of EPOs and e-invoices. After Ipex, over 90% of our indirect POs are now electronically delivered by both spend and transactions, and over 80% of our invoices by spend and transactions are received electronically. They're also tax compliant, meaning they can post directly for payment with no manual intervention at all. whilst not directly part of the transformation program, the groundwork done by Ipex allowed a smooth transition for our operational teams to transition into this brand new shared service organisation, Group Business Services, which I've mentioned already, ready to go with a best-in-class tool, mature processes, and minimal manual touch points already in place. Another really key part of the transformation was driving spend compliance. It had always been a challenge for Rolls-Royce due to a lack of clarity around financial approvals, the difficult systems and processes that I've already mentioned, and a lack of reliable data. Using input from our finance colleagues and our internal controls teams, we, for the very first time, were able to standardize our global financial delegated authority, meaning that no matter where you worked in the business, you had a very clear understanding of what you were able to approve and what would need further approval. In addition, all of those authorities were systemized and digitized, meaning there was no more chasing of paper forms, chasing for signatories, waiting for people to respond to emails. Again, add it to your cart, let the system deal with the approval workflow. We adopted a light touch but mandatory learning approach to ensure budget owners and approvers felt really accountable for their spend that they were approving, as the focus wasn't just on the practical changes, but educating the significance of their actions in help Rolls-Royce meet its core business objectives and cost reduction initiatives. So through a combination of upskilling our procurement professionals, a change in the culture and behaviour around budget approvals and budget management, and also never before available insights into our spend data, we identified over £30 million worth of additional cost savings in the first year of the programme, and those cost savings are directly attributable for the extra insights that we got through our digital transformation journey. And there are numerous further initiatives currently taken in place which will help us deliver a total of just under £250 million of additional savings over the next 10 years. We've also used the new skill sets and training that we delivered to our procurement teams to really reset the relationship we have with our business stakeholders, moving us to strategic partners, focusing not just on the traditional commercial savings, but on spend reduction as well, shining a torch on organisational buying behaviours and opportunities for the businesses to reduce their expenditures. We've also delivered some external benefits, so it's not all internal. Our supplier network will also benefit from a single standard portal to deal with Rolls-Royce through, with improved invoicing and payment processes in place. In turn, that will lead to better value from those suppliers back to Rolls-Royce. Our supplier management approach has also undergone a step change. Traditionally, as I'm sure with many procurement functions across the world, we've only had the time and resources to really focus on top strategic suppliers in terms of scorecards and performance management. But with this new digitisation and digital approach, we now have the ability to capture performance, transactional and live risk data on several thousand of our vendors with no additional effort from procurement. And so it really starts to flag up either great performance that should be rewarded and recognised, or concerns that need to be addressed on our entire supply chain now, to unparalleled visibility that we could never have dreamt of before. Could move on again, please. Thank you. So I appreciate I've provided a lot of detail there. So to just try and boil that down to a few key wins and takeaways in terms of our digitisation journey. Through streamlining and digitising our procurement processes and operations, it's really opened up more time to focus on our strategic priorities and delivering value. In addition, the data we glean from our new systems and the data we have available at our fingertips within a few button clicks, it's incredibly powerful and allows us to make much better and much quicker decisions. In being one of the first support functions within Rolls-Royce to truly digitise, we've also helped other functions improve and modernise as well. In our case, particularly our finance colleagues, who we helped centralise and bring control over cost object and budget ownership and standardise their approval process, had a huge amount of benefit for them. Misha talked a little bit about kind of how the digitalisation has helped through pandemic recovery, and that's absolutely been the case for us. There's a number of examples I could pick out to kind of illustrate that, but it's just one simple example. The speed in which we were able to react when the pandemic hit us was remarkable and incredibly powerful in terms of protecting Rolls-Royce as a business through what was an incredibly difficult time. As you can imagine, with so much of our business in the aerospace sector, COVID-19 had a really crippling effect on our industry and on our business. Having had a modern digital P2P system in place, we were able to take rapid action to dramatically reduce approval limits in our systems, which had a dramatic effect in turn on our spend and protecting cash in a really precarious situation where every penny was vitally important for us to survive. It allowed us to keep things going where we had to continue to buy things on things that were really critical for the business, but it allowed us to really restrict spending on some of the more discretionary spend and put decision making into the hands of more senior people who potentially were in a better place at that point in time in a crisis situation to make a judgment on what was truly critical and what wasn't. Similarly, on the other side of the pandemic, as we're coming out now and the business is starting to emerge in a much more positive light, and we're emerging as a much more leaner, more efficient and more cost-conscious company, we've been able to quickly relax those limits again, but in a controlled manner, using the analytics we have available to us to make sure we don't start to stray in the wrong direction in terms of our cost base again. And last but certainly not least, we've been on a really focused customer journey that's been adopted across our business, putting that customer experience at the forefront of our processes, systems and behaviours. There's been a real cultural shift for us as a function, but one that's landed really, really well within the wider business and helps raise the profile and reputation of procurement. We're now getting invited to and are seen as a key valued part of conversations that we struggled to get a seat at the table at, and we're seen as a real key enabler and an influencer rather than a blocker to progress. So, overwhelmingly positive. I think there's just one more slide. So in terms of our next steps, and this is where I'll come to talk a little bit more about our direct engagement with Amazon. We've been working with Amazon since 2019. I've mentioned already the feedback we had from our end users in terms of delivering that Amazon-like experience. We'll never mind delivering the Amazon-like experience. We're really, really keen to deliver Amazon where it's appropriate within our business. And I'm pleased to say that we're very, very close to finalising a UK-wide rollout of Amazon for Business within Rolls-Royce now. It's been a long but really rewarding journey to go on in terms of making sure that Amazon is the right fit and can deliver the right capabilities for us. And I'm sure there'll be procurement professionals on the call today, who have nervousness about opening up to somebody like an Amazon, given that the scope of things available on Amazon. But it's been a really good partnership to work with Amazon in terms of addressing some of those issues, in terms of the way that we can curate our catalogues. If there are certain commodities of goods that we're unsure about, well, that's okay, because we can send those for approval, or we can block if it's not from a party that we're comfortable buying from, for example, through the Amazon marketplace. Again, the joy of digitisation and the joy of these tools and the way they work together is just how quickly and how easily you can start to customize these requirements to make it fit for your organization and fit for your needs. Amazon for Business itself has come on a long journey, as I'm sure Misha will acknowledge, in terms of being ready to handle invoicing on a wide scale. A company like Rolls-Royce is not in a position, given the transformation journey I've just discussed, that I can have people keying in invoices manually. But Amazon have now into a position where they're launching CXML compliant invoicing, ready for all their customers across, again, a number of key P2P systems, so it can all be automated and fit into that strategy. We'll be leaning on Amazon's expertise, and we've invited them to be part of our high performance supplier network, given their experience across multiple commodities, and their position as a technology leader as well. We're really keen to lean on them and work with them to further improve our customer experience. And as I've mentioned, we'll be taking what's been a really successful pilot and expanding that UK-wide very, very shortly. Misha, I welcome your comments and additional thoughts on that as well.
Thank you, Chris. I think we've you've covered all the main ones there, and yeah, really looking forward to next steps, working together on this journey, and seeing what further savings and efficiencies we can drive together through this partnership. And excited for next year and beyond.
Thanks, Misha.
Thanks, guys. That was really interesting, and it's great to see how it's elevated the work that your procurement team, Chris, are able to do, and punch through and get more influence as well, and get more involved in more strategic, exciting projects as well. And I think in terms of attracting like the really best talent and retaining talent, I think that this is what young procurement professionals are going to be looking for. They don't really want to be bogged down in transactional procurement that we might have had to do when we first started out in our careers, and they're looking for more forward thinking organizations who have really got that nailed and streamlined. Like you say, we shop in that Amazon-like experience in our private life, so why aren't we do it in our business life? And so I guess from a talent perspective and from a people development perspective, Chris, I think would you see that this investment is really important?
Yeah, absolutely, and a great point as well, Emma. I'd say again, particularly with the graduate intakes that we're looking to attract, this is a must-have. We find people will not tolerate old ways of working. They're used to a way of working through their education and through their home lives, and they expect that to be part of their work life as well. It's not even a nice to have and a separator for us to say, oh, look, we're doing this so much better than anyone else. It's just an expectation that that's there. And if it's not there, people will just turn off and go and look for somewhere where that is already.
Absolutely. I think it's a minimum requirement, isn't it? So we'll go through some questions. We've had tons of questions from our audience. So if you've got a burning question, get in there quick so we can make sure that we get through them all. But one question that's come through, and Misha, I think you can help pick this up. I mean, there's often a huge cost associated with digitalizing procurement. And I guess it doesn't always have to be that way. The investment in big in-house or on-prem type software perhaps is, but there are more digital available pieces of software, including Amazon Business, that is affordable for all sorts of sizes of business.
Yes, but that's very very true, and I think it's an incremental journey. And where we see a lot of our customers, they'll kind of dip a toe in the water. They'll say, actually, we'll start off with the direct access approach. We'll have a few users and a few categories that are easier categories to digitize, and where if signing up for Amazon Business is essentially free. There's Business Prime, but there's various tiers of Business Prime, and then a lot of the e-procurement systems offer sort of more trimmed down, leaner versions. We also, some of our customers don't necessarily have the capability for electronic invoicing, but they might have a P-card program that they work with instead, and they can manage that spend via credit cards to alleviate some of the pressure on finance. So there's a number of different sort of very lean solutions out there, and you can sort of build up and start small really, and move incrementally.
Absolutely, and I think you can take away so much of that tail end spend away by just switching to Amazon Business. And like you say, there's no implementation costs or anything associated with that. Great stuff. So this one's probably for Chris. How many catalogues have you set up, and are these standard supplier catalogues or bespoke hosted ones?
That's a great question. I don't actually know how many we've got now. It's probably somewhere between 50 and 100 catalogues in total, and it's a mix between hosted catalogues of the likes of Amazon Business. We have similar links where you're linking out to web shops and existing catalogues that exist online, and a number of hosted ones as well. So we have a mix of both, but again, probably in total, I reckon around 20 what we'd call punch out catalogues, where it's web hosted, with the remainder being hosted internally with internal catalogues.
And I guess building on Misha's point a second ago, I mean, you can start off fairly small and build on this. That's the beauty of this. So make sure you've got some pretty basic spend areas nailed, and then build on it from then on. This one's a good one. What are the compromises you had to make in order to deliver the Amazon experience to your internal stakeholders?
So I wouldn't say we've made any compromises. The fundamentals of what we're here to do as a procurement organisation or a procurement function haven't changed. We're still looking to make sure we are delivering best value. We're still looking to make sure that we're delivering the products and services on time and to a quality that's expected. We're looking to make sure that the suppliers we're working with meet our ethical and quality standards. None of that has been compromised. And, there are some of the things that we do which are really complex and really difficult. Indirect in Rolls-Royce is not just your typical indirect. It includes anything that doesn't end up in the end product. So, I mentioned a test bed. Clearly, you're not going to go into Cooper and order a test bed with the click of a button. There is going to be a due diligence process around that sourcing selection and the strategy selection around what that's going to look like. But there is the content to help guide you through that process, to make it much more visible, to make it much more open and transparent about the steps that you will need to go through for that process. So again, I don't believe we've compromised anywhere, but it's still trying to think, even where we can't deliver that next day sort of delivery service, how do you put the customer experience and how do you put the customer perspective at the heart of everything that we're doing?
And I think that's a good point you make, actually, because I think with some of these projects, we perhaps underestimate how much work needs to go into that stakeholder engagement, guiding them through the implementation. It's a real culture change, and you're winning hearts and minds over, aren't you? So I guess alongside your digital implementation, there needs to be this culture and change program too.
100%. And I would say that arguably we did a better job, because we focused so much on it in terms of the change program with the wider business than we probably did in procurement. Not to say it went badly in procurement, it was fine, but yeah, I think we focused so much on bringing our 9,000 to 10,000 end users with us on that change journey, that in some pockets we probably forgot to take some of our procurement people who yeah, used to sort of older ways. It was a given. With us.
Yeah. No, I get that. And there's absolutely no point in investing in this technology if you're not going to bring people to it to use it. So yeah, the two are very, very important and go hand in hand. Some kind of technical, specific questions here. Are all your approvals budget holders within the Cooper platform?
Yes, all of them. Yeah. And all automated.
Yeah, great stuff. How do you measure or what are your KPIs with suppliers? Can you do that through the system as well?
Yes, yeah, it's absolutely possible through the system. Again, in indirect, well, let me address that in two ways. With our strategic suppliers, we have bespoke scorecards depending on the commodity we're buying. We've tried a number of times and failed to get a standardized scorecard across our indirect supply chain. The fact is, there's such variety in what we're buying, there isn't really a one size fits all, but it's going to follow your kind of traditional QCDR type themes. That does vary from commodity to commodity in terms of exactly what we're measuring. What we do have as a standard now, thanks to Cooper, thanks to the digitalization of these services, is standardized end user feedback. So now if I'm buying something in Cooper, when I'm invoiced for those goods or services, I get a standard email. So long as I've not reviewed the same supplier within a month, it says how was your purchase? Same way that if I buy from Amazon or from eBay or from whoever else it is I'm buying from at home, I get an email to say, what do you think? I get a very simple form and it says, rate me out of 5, value for money, delivery, quality, would you recommend the supplier? And that's been so powerful for us in terms of getting a brand new perspective on our entire supply chain.
Mm-hmm. Excellent stuff. Do users, requisitioners, have to receipt goods and services before invoices are paid within the Amazon system? How does that work?
Yeah, so I won't speak about Amazon specifically, but across our supply chain, for the majority of goods and services, yes, we do have a matrix of risk where with some high volume, low criticality commodities, we've taken a decision to turn off what we've got three-way matching and things will pay automatically. That is limited to a number of key strategic suppliers where we have kind of other assurance processes in place. Mm-hmm. And yes, we do have issues around staff not receiving goods and services still. It's not as bad as it used to be pre-digitisation, but those issues still exist. What I would say is that we've now got the ability to run reports, send chasers, and if we wished, automate receipting. If let's say we sent three reminders out, we can press a button to say, well, okay, we've given them 3 chances to say they've not received the goods and services. We're going to receipt for you. And again, it's all click of a button stuff.
Yeah, good to have that flexibility. And Misha, I guess there's option within to use P cards and things like that to get over this kind of thing within the Amazon business.
Yes, and I think for a lot of our larger, more strategic customers are using the three-way match process and are paying on invoice, but they also have access to all the data and analytics on what has been delivered, when it's been delivered. So if there any delivery misses, we can pick that up proactively through our customer service and support. We can actually provide refunds for goods that were and deliveries that were missed, or replacement products. And also we would fit into whatever process the customer has in place and work on that together to also find the optimal balance. And as part of our customer service promise as well, that if something is charged for and then later found not to have been received correctly, we'll refund them. So
excellent. There's a question here about kind of integration and how easy these systems all speak to each other, and automating the data. Someone saying particularly in sales and marketing, but for the end user experience, does creating digital systems mean that small, less sophisticated suppliers are no longer used? Okay, that's a sub question, I guess. So first of all, we'll talk about the integration. How easy is it for these systems to just plug and play in with each other?
Yeah, I mean, ridiculously so. I think all of these major technology firms in this space are realizing that probably none of them can do everything that people want, and that actually the more that they can open up, the better. Cooper, as an example, prides itself on being an open platform, and I know a number of their competitors are exactly the same. There's always an element of IT testing and IT due diligence, but generally these are really, really integrate into each other.
And how easy are they for? Oh, sorry, Misha, did you want to add to that?
I was going to add, we've had experience with over 150 different e-procurement systems, and it is very much plug and play in that respect. I'd say the bulk of the time goes into the testing and the change management and the processes around it, rather than the actual technical integration.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how easy is it for those smaller, less sophisticated suppliers to still transact with you? Is it an issue for them in terms of their maturity in terms of digital?
Not at all, because we can help them on that journey. I think there was the question earlier around hosted catalogues, and so for those of you who might not be familiar with the terminology, that's where, essentially using an Excel spreadsheet, they upload their catalogue to a supplier portal, which is then transformed into our portal, and we can just shop that way with them instead. It's some suppliers are happy to kind of go full hog into full integrations. Others want a lighter touch, or all of it can be achieved depending on how we want to interact with those suppliers. We don't see it as a blocker, and it's certainly not something that we've kind of consciously said, okay, well, we can't work with small suppliers because of this now.
No, excellent. I
I
think
think within also the Amazon business sort of marketplace, we do work with a lot of small businesses, and we give them access to programs like the single supplier invoicing program. So it's a consolidated supplier from the customer standpoint, because it's a standard compliance invoice, but behind that sits a number of smaller suppliers, independent businesses that so we are opening up that opportunity for them to sell to larger business customers in a consistent and compliant way.
Okay, great stuff. We had a couple of questions on sustainability and ethical procurement. And Misha, we talked about this briefly at the beginning. Chris, I don't know if you could go into a bit more detail about how you're leveraging digital procurement to try and meet some of these sustainability goals.
Yeah, so I mean, for us, without this kind of digital technology roadmap that we've got in place, we'd be finding it really, really difficult now. So we've just talked about plug and play. You know, we will be engaging very shortly with a well-known market leader supply chain sustainability ratings company to help us with those sustainability assessments of our supply chain, and they integrate directly into all the major P2P suites. So, you know, I get my results through that service platform, but I don't need to go into that platform to look at the results or do anything with them. It's there in Cooper as part of my standard supplier relationship management. So really, really, really key that's there to aid the decision making as well.
And I guess just having more visibility over your supply base, over your supply chain.
And that's first step. You know, this sustainability journey is going to be so complex for everybody. You know, there's no easy way through this, but until we've got, you know, a baseline and some visibility, it's very difficult to define what those next steps are going to be. Yeah,
excellent. Going with digitalization and having all processes streamlined in one place, I wonder where and when the price service negotiations are taking place. So I guess that's all happening pre-catalog stage.
Yeah, so again, a mixture. I mean, we will generally, the more we can get ready for people to buy pre-negotiated, the better. And that's what we're aiming to do. It's what we encourage our category managers and our buyers to do, is to have that content ready to go. Inevitably, you can't do that in every case, and you can't do that for every commodity. So a number of times the trigger through Cooper will be to launch, you know, an RFQ and RFX process, from which you would then, you know, either go into whether it be a strategy development or just a sourcing process, and do your negotiation and pricing discussions from there. So it can be either.
Yeah, and how do you benchmark your pricing? Do you do anything on that? So make sure you get
yeah, so we're not obsessed with benchmarking in Rolls-Royce. We do benchmarking with other companies. We're more about spend reduction these days rather than pure unit pricing, in terms of, you know, how do we keep the spend down for buying the same basket of goods. But one of the benefits of working with someone like a Cooper, and again, I know that their rivals have similar things, is the community that you're working with. So, you know, if I'm doing an RFX for a certain commodity or a certain type of goods, I have the power of the community and other Cooper users to look at what they're paying for the same basket of goods, and I can look at the suppliers, alternative suppliers. You know, again, it's all there in front of you. Click of a button, very visible, very easy to use.
Yeah, excellent. And we've probably got a chance for one more question. Is it possible to get Amazon Business in Latin American countries? So Misha, where in the world can you access Amazon Business?
So we have 9 sites. So we have US, Canada, 5 sites in Europe, and then we have India and Japan. The 5 European sites are UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. And then we support most of Europe through those 5 sites. So Germany tends to be our hub, and that supports most of Northern and Central and Eastern Europe as well. So Latin America, there are Amazon consumer sites. Amazon Business isn't there yet. Hopefully at some point in the future. So we don't know when, but
watch this space. Yeah. Excellent, brilliant. Right, thank you very much, Chris and Misha. That was an excellent session. I'm afraid we run out of time. Thank you everyone for submitting so many questions. That made my job so much easier today. As we mentioned, this session has been recorded, so you'll be able to watch it again or share it with your colleagues or your peers. And we'll send you, everyone who's registered will get the link on that recording. That'll probably be through next week. And also we'll send you a reminder to the other Amazon Business webinars that you may have missed, because we recorded all of those too. Chris, Misha, thank you very much for this session. That was very insightful. So thanks for your contribution, and a massive thank you to Amazon Business for supporting us on these seminar series and sharing their insights. They've been fabulous. Great stuff. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.